Here's Johnny.
I'll be back.
And you will know my name is the Lord. I'm walking here.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. Groovy.
Speaking of superhero movies, we're here today to talk about Daredevil. JK. I was trying to, in my car, work on my Michael Douglas voice so I could do like a killer introduction, and I ended up with Nick Nolte. Apparently that's the closest I can come, just this horrible gravel monster that lives in my throat just wants to get out when I try and do Michael Douglas. So, that's not happening.
I do like the idea of Nick Nolte playing Pym.
That would be great. That's how they de-age him. They have Nick Nolte come on and play old Pym. And they have Michael Douglas come on and play young Pym, because that conceivably looks like 100-year difference.
Scott, I need you to be the Ant-Man. Scott, can you do that for me?
There's just a whole separate reason that his daughter hates him. Is just that she hates dealing with Nick Nolte.
That's understandable. Could you just imagine, though, like, instead of Michael Douglas's, like, grumpy, reserved, composed genius, we just have drunken Nick Nolte, like,
Scott, second chances, they don't come around all that often. I suggest you take a close look at it, Scott. This is your chance.
Look, I can't put on that suit anymore.
It took its toll. Have you seen my mugshot?
And now I'm not even sure if I'm doing Nick Nolte. I might be doing Tom Waits.
Scott. You have to go down to the circus.
Wait, now you're going back into Nolte. It's like a weird...
I can't pick one. I just...
It's like a weird metamorphosis.
So anyways, everyone who's very confused by this opening, MB and I are here today for a very mini pulp fuck. Oh man, this is going south on us. A mini box office pulp about Ant-Man.
Yes,
right,
the miniest of bops, if you will.
It's going subatomic. Ooh, trailer sounds.
These men will unleash chaos. It's time to become the Ant-Man. Are you ready?
Sure, yeah, why not? Oh my God! Ow!
What could possibly go wrong?
On July 17th.
When you're small, you have superhuman strength, so you need to know how to punch.
Show me how to punch. Were you going for the hand?
Heroes
Okay, I got this.
don't get any bigger.
Oh, that's amazing. How'd you do that, bro? Look at your shoulder.
Marvel's Ant-Man, July 17th.
Marvel's Ant-Man, presented by Nick Nolte and crew. But I'm gonna campaign for that. I want Nick Nolte to be in a Marvel. He's like 70-some years old. They gotta hurry up on that.
Well, he was already in Hulk.
Yeah, but that doesn't really count, does it? Is that part of Marvel canon?
It should be. He was the Absorbing Man.
Yeah. Didn't they, like, kind of, like, isn't there an Absorbing Man, like, substitute in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. now or something?
I think so, but he's never going to be Nolte, in my opinion.
Well, who can be?
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, the original 2003 Hulk, you can kind of say it happened if you ignore the opening of Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
But then again, you also have to acknowledge the mutated poodles and Josh Lucas just being there.
Yeah, I have a feeling Marvel would not ask Nick Nolte back.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. When was the last time Nolte did anything? And I know this is a big segue, folks. Just stick with us. I gotta sate my Nolte curiosity.
Hey, it's tangentially related to the Marvel Universe, so I'd say it's fun.
He was the Ant-Man.
I don't remember the last thing Nolte. I think Hulk was the last big thing Nolte actually did.
Okay, no. He's got stuff. He was uncredited in Run All Night, whatever that was. That came out this year. Something called Return to Sender that came out. Weightless, which was announced.
These all sound like direct-to-video.
Yeah, probably. The Ridiculous Six, the new Adam Sandler movie for Netflix that looks like it's just offensive to everybody. That's filming right now. He's in that.
Yeah.
Oh, God. He was in a couple episodes of Grace Point, whatever that was, TV show. There was a show called Asthma. He played a character called Werewolf, the voice, which honestly makes perfect sense.
Why wasn't he Werewolf Dad in The Wolfman?
Man.
Like, Hopkins was amazing, but can you imagine Nolte?
You've done terrible things.
Oh God, I want that to be a thing. They could have brought Tom Waits back. You know, he did Renfield in Bram Stoker's Dracula. This would have been a great, thread to unite those movies.
Okay, in an alternate universe where the Wolfman remake is with an entirely new cast, Tom Waits in Hugo Weaving's role.
Oh, chills.
And as a weird nod to Jack Nicholson's Wolf, James Spader as Benicio del Toro's role.
I'd like the idea, but I feel like something's wrong. Anyways, Gangster Squad. The answer is Gangster Squad is the last important thing Nick Nolte did in 2013. So it's been a few years. Anyways, Nick Nolte, come back to us, man. We miss you.
I'm glad we solved that mystery, because that was on the minds of all of us.
Right? Everyone at home was just biting their nails like, oh, I can't do this. I can't go on IMDb. I'm listening. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm going to be distracted.
I mean, why would you want to go to IMDb, to be fair?
It's terrifying. Biggest hive of scum and villainy in the universe.
Yeah.
But back on topic.
Well, I mean, to be fair, going to the topic.
We took the roundabout route to the topic, and now we're there. Yeah. This is a little exciting, folks, because I have no idea what MB thought of the movie. He doesn't know what I thought of the movie. I'm not really sure what I thought of the movie, and we don't know what you thought of the movie. So we're all going to learn a little something right now. MB, what are your initial thoughts on The Ant-Man?
I thought it was all right.
Resounding meh. Okay, got it.
Now, when I say that, it's like I'm saying that and I liked it, but I didn't love it like a lot of other Marvel movies. Like, I love Captain America, both of them. I love the first Iron Man. I actually kind of like the second Iron Man a lot, apart from the second
me.
I like both Avengers movies. And this one, to me, kind of falls, in terms of the other Marvel movies, it kind of falls in between the first Thor and Incredible Hulk.
Okay.
And I actually do like the Incredible Hulk a lot. This one just kind of, to me, seemed to suffer a lot from studio edits.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot there that I thought was like, okay, I could tell there are other scenes featuring these characters that aren't in the theatrical cut. Like, I can even tell, like, from the promotional material that there's a lot of scenes from this movie that aren't in the movie. Like, I've never seen something be so cut down, and you could tell. It's weird, because, like, okay, this is where this scene should have been, but that scene didn't happen, so we're just cutting to this scene.
Like, kind of like a Domino's thing, if there's nothing to support it, well, then you can't have this other part. You just got to cut it all out.
Yeah, it's weird, because, like, you have all this stuff with Corey Stoll's character hinted at in the theatrical cut, but I feel like they did actually film stuff with him.
The biggest, on that end, the biggest confusing thing for me was, towards the end of the movie, Hope basically says, you're not being yourself. It's, the chemicals are messing with your brain patterns, or whatever gobbledygook. And I'm sitting there like, wait. When was that ever shown? Like,
yeah, I know. Like,
they talk about how, like, if you shrink without a helmet on, it'll mess you up, but he's never shown shrinking before that, just experimenting. Like, everything he's tried before that basically exploded.
Yeah, and it's basically like saying, like, okay, you've been experimenting with these particles. He's been testing on live animals. He hasn't actually, like, interacted with the particles.
Right, and he was an asshole the entire movie. It wasn't like he suddenly developed that. He murdered a guy in, like, the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, he turned him into snot, essentially.
Yeah, so that was, like, the most egregious part to me, where it's like, hold on, something, like, either there was a rewrite that didn't get all the way through, or there was a subplot that got exercised, or they just threw some bullshit in there. But that part really felt like it wasn't supported, and it threw me off. Every time I watch it kind of takes me out of the movie.
It was kind of like, okay, this dude is just doing villainous stuff to do villainous stuff, and now we've got him working with Hydra. How do we justify this?
Yeah.
Because so far, all we've shown is that he's really kind of a greedy corporate douchebag. How do we turn it up to supervillain? Which is so weird, because, like, it's not like he hadn't shown the tendency to do that. Like, as he himself says in the movie, he came there that night to kill Pym, but he didn't because Hope was there.
Which is also confusing because he's trying to show off in the end scene where he's like, it's all gonna blow up in your face, and he makes it sound like he wants Pym to be humiliated by his success. Which doesn't make sense, because, a scene ago he's trying to murder you in your house. Like, which way do you want it, buddy? I think with the rewrites, some motivations for characters kind of got gobbled up and just mushed together and confused. Which is bound to happen because they had to rewrite this thing on such a short notice.
Yeah, especially going into it with, like, okay, Edgar Wright completely left the project. His DNA goes with him. How do we completely retain this movie while at the same time giving it its own flavor?
Right.
Especially with a director like Peyton Reed, who's never done something like this. And you have Adam McKay and Paul Rudd also doing rewrites on it. It definitely feels like something that was rewritten, but at the same time, I feel like there was more of the DNA in there than I would have thought.
Yeah.
So I kind of liked it on that level, where I could tell like which ideas were Edgar Wright's and which ideas were theirs. In Wright's version, I feel like one of the strengths of his was I feel like he was the one that came up with the overlapping characters, in which is what I'm saying is that, okay, Scott Lang is a father who wants to do right by his daughter. Hank Pym is also a father who wants to do right by his daughter. Corey Stoll is sort of the protege of Pym, who is kind of taken in a darker direction than Lang is, but they kind of parallel each other. Like, I like the stuff like that. And, Hope Van Dyne's character arc kind of mirroring Corey Stoll's, where she resents her father, but at the same time, like, it's just little touches like that where I thought the characters intersecting was something that felt very Edgar Wright to me.
From what I've heard, a lot of that character stuff was probably there, and Stoll's basically come out and said, yeah, there was more to my character, and some of that was kind of pared down just for the sake of the movie because it was expanding in the rewrite. So his character was probably taken down a little bit from what he was. But Hope's character was actually bolstered up quite a bit. Because Mitchell and Lily basically went up to them when they were rewriting and said, hey, why don't we make my character, a real character? So I guess in Edgar Wright's version, she was more or less a background presence. Maybe not even a full-fledged character, didn't have as much to do. And that was really bulked up, according to her. Like, that was something that was fixed. Well, maybe not even fixed, but just changed.
So in Edgar Wright's version, she basically would have been like sequel baiting?
I think so, yeah. Huh. Like, I think she would have been kind of shown and hinted at, but not brought to the forefront until they did the sequel where she fully becomes the Wasp. And I don't even remember if the idea of the Wasp was always in there or not.
Well, I know that the whole Hope Van Dyne thing was in there with Wright's version, so I imagine the Wasp was something that was kind of hinted at, or at least alluded to in some way. Like, I don't know if it was full-fledged, like, oh, there's a flashback of her getting killed, like the original one, shrinking down and getting killed by, stopping that nuke. But I feel like Wright did add something with the Wasp. Maybe I seem to recall some sort of interview where he did talk about the Wasp and how she fit into the plot, even though it sounded like it was going to be very minor and very minuscule.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Wright normally does pretty decent with his female characters, but they're not necessarily at the forefront. I'm thinking like Liz, obviously, in Shaun of the Dead runs throughout the entire movie, but we don't get as much of her presence until maybe the later acts.
Well, Ramona Flowers, I mean, really, the most she does is have that one fight with knives.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
it's not like she's written as a bad character, it's just the focus is definitely on the male protagonist.
Yeah, which I think may have been what was going to happen with Hope Van Dyne, and I'll think about it, because it's like, it doesn't seem like he would be the kind of guy to just shortchange a female character. He would have her in there, but she would just be kind of like, it would be very clear that it would be focused on Scott Lang, I think. Which I think would have been fair. Like, to be fair, I think that would have been the idea with all the characters, is that they're secondary to Lang.
Yeah. One thing, just going off of Hope's character, that bothered me a little. Before going into the movie, I saw some, like, Tumblr comic where they're making fun of the trope in movies where, think of the movie Wanted. Like, you'll have an inexperienced, everyday Joe Schmo who is thrust into a brand new world by a strong, take-no-guff female character who's super skilled. And, they train together for, like, 2 weeks, and they fall in love, and then come the final action sequence, the inexperienced Joe Schmo all of a sudden is better at the job than the female who has trained her entire life at this job. And he takes over, and, like, he becomes the big hero, and he has to save her, or she has to, like, fight some secondary villain. And watching the movie, I'm like, oh my god, that's exactly what's happening here.
I will say, there isn't a moment where he has to save her, technically.
No.
So that's good.
But they more or less just wrote her out of the ending. Like, she disappears because, Hank Pym is shot, so she just kind of goes, oh, well, I've got to stay with him, and she no longer matters to the story at all from that point.
No, not at all. And then she shows up at the end, and they're suddenly, like, there's a scene of Michael Douglas's character opening up the door, and they're in the middle of making out. It's like, where did this come from? Right,
it would have worked perfectly fine as, like, a begrudging friendship where she just gives him a lot of shit and he just kind of gives it back. That would have been fun. That would have been fine. And instead, they're like, no, let's just push this. I mean, admittedly, there was a really big laugh, and Hank Pym's like, Scott, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
Like, that great reaction, but it just felt like a very weird beat. Like, this romance just kind of showed up out of nowhere.
Yeah. It felt more like it's like he was into her because she's hot. That's about it.
Yeah.
And, well, first of all, before we go any further, we've never gotten into, like, what you thought of the movie.
Yeah. We had a good combo going. I didn't want to interrupt. But I went in with very, very low expectations, just because I'm a really big Edgar Wright fan, and I assumed as soon as he left the project, it was sunk. So going in and seeing it turn out as good as it did, I was overjoyed. Like, I know it's not a perfect movie. I know there's a lot of things wrong with it, even on a technical level, thematic level, just about everything level, there's something flawed. But I had a lot of fun with it. I definitely rank it towards the higher end of my Marvel movie list. I appreciated that they decided to go in a different direction than what they've been doing for the last couple of Avenger film or Marvel films. Like, instead of a threat that can destroy the world, they wanted to go smaller, and literally smaller.
Yeah.
And I really like the idea they switched up the format to make it like a heist film instead of just a pure action film.
Yeah, to me, actually, Ant-Man feels more like a Phase 1 movie, and I'm not saying that to be detrimental. I love Phase 1 more than I love Phase 2, actually. Of the Marvel movies, where not just in the fact that it's an origin story, but in the fact that it is trying to do something that benefits the character rather than just kind of fit everything into this box of what a Marvel movie should be.
Yeah, I like how they redefined the scope and basically wanted personal stakes. Like, if you watch Thor 2, it's about Thor saving the entire cosmos.
Yeah.
Pretty big scope, but I mean, I'm not engaged in that conflict the same way I am Scott trying to protect his daughter. Like, to me, that means a lot more because we know Scott's been fighting for his daughter the entire movie, how much he loves her, he does everything for her. And to know that the end battle comes down to him personally stepping up to save his daughter, well, the stakes are really high, and it's one man versus another. So I like that. It's very personal and more intimate than what we've been seeing lately.
And I also like the fact that it was based on the fact that it's all about a legacy. And everything is drawn out from the fact that Hank Pym was originally the Ant-Man, and everything that comes out of that is basically, okay, first of all, his technology is being co-opted and being used as a weapon, so that's a bad thing. Secondly, his former protege is the one that's doing it, so that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of him trying to make up for his own past mistakes through Scott, which I actually like. Like, one of the big things that people who are fans of the comics, and I never really was, to be honest. Like, I like a lot of superhero comics. I love most of Marvel. Ant-Man was never one of those characters that I really had any sort of investment in whatsoever. Like, I know the general basic history of it, like Hank Pym, Giant Man, Ant-Man, Goliath, Yellow Jacket, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Any given identity on a day of the week for him.
But you can't, like, name any of his villains or anything more about his history besides, like, the wife-beating thing. Like,
yeah, the wife-beating thing, and, like, he is a founder of the Avengers, but it's like...
Oh, I made Ultron. Like, we had the broad strokes, but I couldn't tell you much about his actual adventures or personality.
No, not at all. And that was kind of the thing that was my reaction to this movie. Like, Edgar Wright was kind of my sole focus of when this movie was being made, because, like, okay, I don't really care about Ant-Man that much, but I do like the idea of an Edgar Wright superhero movie, so I'm game.
Right.
So going into it, I kind of had the same low expectations as you because I just don't have any investment in the character.
Mm-hmm.
But
because on the outset, Ant-Man just seems like such a stupid idea. He can get tiny, and he talks to ants.
yeah, there's also that, but there's also like just the character of Hank Pym. I've never really got the appeal of him because he just kind of seems to me like a straight-laced Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Like, he just kind of seems like a scientisty dude, who...
That's Mr. Sciencey dude to you, sir.
He just kind of seems like an offshoot of the Atom, which is like the DC equivalent.
Yeah, but he can talk to ants. Totally different.
Yeah, that's true. And he can turn giant, so there's... he doesn't turn giant in this film, which I was disappointed by, but... for me, the whole thing about it being more of a legacy film and having Hank Pym be the mentor, I think added to that a lot more, because I don't think a film with Hank Pym just being Ant-Man would have worked at all. I mean, I think it would have just been it would have been a much lesser movie at the very least, because this whole thing kind of adds more of a dynamic to it than I think the comics has, because, Scott Lang is the successor to the Ant-Man role in the comics, but really he's not really that important in the grand scheme of things, because he's just kind of second to Pym.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, there was another Ant-Man that came along, so it's like he's just kind of the second in a long line of Ant-Mans.
It is an interesting thing the movie does, where it sets it up as it's not Ant-Man as a singular hero. This is basically a team effort at all points. Like, Hank Pym is the brains of the operation. Without him, Scott would probably get himself killed.
Oh, yeah.
And Scott is the muscle, and I guess Hope would also be the brains. Basically, everyone's the brains but Scott.
Yeah. And Hope also, like, brings a lot of the action to it, where she kind of trains him to fight and stuff like that. Though, I did find it weird that it's like, they keep bringing up the fact that she wants to put on the suit herself.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't that just happen? Like, they should have just had it to where she tried it and it didn't work out for whatever reason. Because I feel like I get the fact that Douglas was trying to protect his daughter and didn't want to lose her in the same way he lost his wife, but I would have liked to see a scene of her, like, actually trying to be Ant-Man and failing.
One thing that really, one thing that bothers me, and this might be just a personal preference, but the placement of the flashback of Wasp dying, I really think that was put in the wrong spot to aid the movie the way it should have aided the movie.
Yeah.
Just imagine, like, okay, people love the Star Trek reboot, the 2009 Star Trek, and people really love Guardians of the Galaxy, and the one thing that really joins those movies is they have really dramatic tearjerker openings where, either a parent has to die for a child, or basically, a loved one has to die and sacrifice themselves.
Yeah.
Well, I guess not Guardians, but someone dies, a loved one dies.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of...
I get what you're saying.
But it's a dramatic opener. It really hooks people. It's that plugs people into the movie immediately and gives it emotional terms. I mean, that's one of the reasons why people love Up so much, because that beginning sucker punch is so powerful. You are just hooked to see everything else that happens in the movie. You want Carl to, feel better. You want him to get over his wife's death, and you're committed. Whereas with Ant-Man, we have that scene in, like, the middle of the movie, so we don't understand Pym's, like, anger and frustration and grumpiness. It would explain his character immediately if we had that scene open the movie. It would have emotional stakes, everyone would be interested, committed, and we would understand why he doesn't want Hope to take the suit, because we open with that big dramatic moment, and we'd see the impact it has on Hank Pym immediately. Putting it in the middle of the movie doesn't give us time to register that as a good reason.
Okay, first of all, why did you have to bring up the opening to Up?
Sorry, I'm messing up a little bit too.
Oh God, I have to get past that now mentally. But
damn it, Pixar, quit making me cry.
Secondly, I totally agree with you in the fact that also it would have been brilliant because you have a guy in an Ant-Man suit suddenly show up. The audience would have been completely fooled in the fact that they would have thought it was Scott Lang. So you would have had this amazing reveal where it's like, no, it actually is young Michael Douglas. Like, there could have been a scene of him opening up the helmet and it's young Michael Douglas from, like, 1989.
That would have been a cool reveal, too. I mean, they did a great job with the de-aging tech in this one. But it's basically Hank Pym, punching a douchebag in the face. Like, meh.
It's creepy how much he looks like Wall Street era Michael Douglas. Like they only used digital effects. Like I expected, like they used makeup and a combination of stuff, but no, they only really used digital effects that were implemented in like the X-Men 3 and stuff like that. It was the same company. I found out a couple days ago, and it doesn't feel fake. Like it doesn't. It's not a Jeff Bridges in Tron Legacy situation where his mouth doesn't move quite right. It's like it looks perfect. It looks.
One thing that is a little off, and I'm not sure if this is just like the way Michael Douglas was acting in the scene, but he doesn't blink. And I'm not sure if that's like something where they just couldn't do a convincing CGI blink, or he just, when he was acting, he wasn't blinking. But it's concerning. Like, you're watching, like, God damn it, blink, you CGI monster.
I feel like that was actually Douglas's part, because he was very, like, intense in that scene. He was very, like, trying to be angry and stuff. So it felt like he was more, like, staring down the dude that, like, brought up Janet and all that. But I totally agree about the opening, because not only would that scene have been extended, which I wanted more of that scene. Like, it was only really a couple seconds long in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Maybe 30 seconds at most. And I would have loved to see, like, Ant-Man and the Wasp teaming up to take this thing down, and it ends in tragedy, and, like, that segues into the scene where he quits S.H.I.E.L.D., and that's the opening of the movie. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, I think that would have worked. And it also makes that line, like, oh, if you protected Janet as much as you protected, whatever else.
Yeah.
Like, that would have, we would have been there and understood why he had to punch that guy in the face so hard.
Yeah, instead it's just like, it comes off kind of flat.
Yeah. It's all about placement.
Yeah, it's more like, the opening scene, what's mostly cool about that is, like, the de-aging tech and the fact that, oh, Peggy Carter's there. And Howard Stark, it's like...
Another one of those, we've got to work this into the Marvel Universe somehow. It really weirds me out thinking that at one point this was supposed to be like the opening of the Phase 1 universe.
Yeah, this was supposed to be, like, right up there with, like, I think Iron Man 2 and then Avengers. It was supposed to be in that placement of between those, like, along with Captain America and Thor.
Yeah, and I really wonder how this all would have turned out, because, I mean, obviously there are a decent number of scenes that have to be inserted just to give the ties back to the other Marvel movies or make sure they all fit in. I mean, the entire Sam Wilson fight that was like a new addition.
Yeah.
Obviously, it couldn't have existed before. Sam Wilson's just too new of a character.
Yeah, which, by the way, actually was one of my favorite parts of the movie in general, because that, to me, the whole sequence where he goes and he tries to, like, infiltrate that facility, finds out it's an Avengers facility, he meets up with Falcon, and they have, like, this whole fight. That, to me, felt like its own mini Marvel comic. Like, it felt like a comic from the 70s done on film. It just felt to me like it was the most comic accurate portrayal of how two of these characters would interact, as opposed to like some of the other Marvel movies where they interact and it's like it feels contrived and it seems like it has to be there because Avengers and like.
See, I was conflicted on it. One, I do really enjoy the scene, but it does to me feel like, okay, how do we work this into Age of Ultron? I know, we'll show the new facility that was just built. Remember that movie from like 2 months ago, guys? Come on. So it feels kind of pandering at the same time. So I like it, but I don't like the fact I like it. I will say one of the great things about it, though, is George R.R. Martin came out with a blog today basically talking about how he enjoyed Ant-Man, but he didn't like the ending fight because the problem is in all the Marvel movies you basically have a hero and a villain with the same power sets fighting each other for the finale.
Yeah.
And it's more exciting to him if you see two completely different power sets going at it, which is something they get across in the scene because the Falcon can fly. He's got the sight to find Scott wherever he is. And Scott's big thing is he's very tiny and fast.
Yeah. And also it's portrayed at that point, like, up until this mission, Scott is very much a rookie at this. He's never done anything in the field with the Ant-Man suit. Mm-hmm. This is his first time kind of going up to bat, and he's following Douglas's orders. He's following Hope's orders. I keep calling him Douglas for some reason. He's following Pym's orders. He's following Hope's orders. And this is the first time he diverges from the path, and you feel like it's like, okay, this is where he's going to screw up major because he is – there's no way he can improvise with this. And then he does, and it's like you're genuinely impressed because it's like, oh, that's how you take out the Falcon.
It was also really entertaining to just hear him constantly apologizing.
Yeah.
I enjoy that. I enjoy when heroes say thank you or, like, actually feel bad about some of the things they've broken.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Scott was that kind of character. Like, it would have been easy to portray him as, like, this grizzled ex-con who like is world weary and stuff like that. Like almost basically the Penn characterization in this movie. But I like the fact that he's genuinely a nice dude. He just kind of ran into some trouble with the law, like incidentally.
Those are 2 points that I can think of that connect back to that idea. First, it really weirded me out in the movie because it kept seesawing back and forth between Scott being a bad person and Scott being a good person. Because they have parts in there where, like, Lewis is talking about how he's basically being Robin Hood when he committed his crimes because the company he robbed was stealing millions from their customers and he got fired for whistleblowing.
Yeah.
However, everyone else in the movie just treats him like he's a terrible, nasty thief who's just being a jerk. And we also see scenes of him being an expert thief, which you wouldn't think he would just pick up from, that one heist.
Yeah.
So it's like the motivation for him kind of got softened up, I think, at some point. Like, I think originally he must have been like the bad thief who needed redemption, and Marvel maybe thought, well, wouldn't it be better if like we had a rooting interest in this guy because he's not an asshole completely? So it kind of got muddled somewhere in the rewrite process, or it could be the other way around too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I feel like I don't know, with the whole thing with everybody treating him like an ex-con, I feel like that just kind of came with the territory of him being an ex-con. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like that was more of a bias of, oh, he has a past, he has a history, that must mean that he's like this bad dude. And
yeah, like even the ex-wife character though, and the cop, and basically everyone just treats him like he's a bad person.
Yeah.
And so that really threw me off. But anyways, the other point I wanted to bring up was I do appreciate how they took him in much more positive attitude, a positive light. Like instead of being, like you said, that jaded, bitter, sarcastic guy, he's still pretty optimistic. He's just trying to right some of the wrongs he's made. And I love how the ending reflected that. This is kind of an idea I'm going to crib from Birth, Life, Death, or Birth, Movies, Death. I just want to call it Badass Digest. I like the old name more. Anyways, Devin made an article recently where he's talking about how it's actually really cool that movie ends on such a positive note. It doesn't end with, Scott Lang on the run from the law, having to abandon his family that he just saved, which is what people would expect nowadays, a darker kind of climate for a movie.
Yeah.
This one ends on a pretty good note. There's a family, a non-traditional family, coming together, having a nice dinner. Everyone's happy, bonding, getting over their differences. They have a giant ant as a pet now, and everything's cool. Like, they have found a way to come together and be happy. And it's actually like a very rewarding, cool ending.
I mean, he gave his daughter a giant Thomas the Tank Engine, so he's the best father in the world.
Right? That's got to put you number one. You got to get a mug for that.
Yeah, definitely. But I love the little scene of like, it's a very small touch to a scene, but I love him just watching his daughter like do a cartwheel, and like, despite all this big stuff happening, that's still amazing to him. And like, just seeing like video of her just doing something inconsequential, and like, he's still a normal dude. He just wants to have a relationship with his daughter. It's the fact that he became a superhero is kind of almost secondary to that.
Right. So I do appreciate the very upbeat, kind of positive, optimistic vibes the whole movie gives off.
Yeah. And I especially like the whole payoff of the relationship between Hank Pym and Hope, where he finally just buckles down and, explains why he didn't want that to happen. Though I felt like it was kind of weirdly done.
Yeah.
I felt like the payoff was worth it because, like, them just kind of finally – it's a very good scene where, like, they're having this emotional moment, and, like, she kind of breaks down and kind of realizes what he's been doing all these years, and they kind of understand each other for the first time. And then Scott just ruins it. And
that Paul Rudd, he's a charmer.
Yeah. I have to say, as far as the movie goes, one of the biggest strengths is the cast, because I don't think
for sure, 100%. The cast really saves so much of the movie.
Yeah. For one thing, Corey Stoll's character would not have worked nearly as well if it weren't for the fact that dude is just a smarmy dick.
Corey Stoll is you can just tell he's having a blast in this role, and he's really throwing himself at it. I think that's the saving grace for almost every Marvel villain. Normally, they're just not interesting. They don't pop off the page, but they have such good actors in them.
Oh yeah, that was the whole thing. That was the whole thing with Bridges. Like, in the first Iron Man, it's like
this is basically Bridges 2.0. Even the bald thing's there.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's an evil businessman. He's like co-opting the technology. Like, it's all there. It's all very much Ironmonger. But at the same time, it's like it feels different because the actors are different. And yeah. I like that Corey Stoll managed to do that with this character, because he not only does he play it very well when he's Corey Stoll, when he becomes Yellow Jacket, he's terrifying in a weird way. Like, in that suit, like, when I first saw it, I was kind of like, that's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of like a weird take on Spider-Man, almost.
I really like the suit. Like, I wish there were action figures out for it, because I fucking love that design.
Yeah, well, there are, like, Funkos and stuff, so.
It's not the same. I want, like, I just got, like, the Diamond Select Ant-Man. I want a Diamond Select Yellow Jacket to go with it.
Yeah. But, like, in the movie, the costume really works. It's really kind of like, when he rises up out of that family pool and just kind of slithers towards them, like, floats towards them like a wasp, it's kind of an intimidating image, even though he's wearing, like, this big tech suit, and that could have easily looked ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I like how...
I'm always a little disappointed. Like, they keep wasting really good actors in the villain roles, which are always, like, the most thankless in Marvel movies.
Well, they always...
Unless you're Tom Hiddleston, yeah, you're gonna get one movie and you're gonna get blown up at the end, and then they forget about you, and you're never gonna get to be back later.
Yeah. It's just a shame, because, like, you have, like, Tim Roth as the Abomination. You have...
Hugo Weaving as the Red Skull. You have Lee Pace as Ronan. Like, there's so many great guys, and as soon as they're cast as a villain, it's like, oh, well, that's over. Christopher Eccleston is like, come on, don't waste him.
Mickey Rourke, like,
yeah.
Sam Rockwell.
Rockwell could come back.
Yeah, Rockwell could well, he did technically in that one shot where he had a prison bitch. But like, that is the big problem with the Marvel movies as far as the villains go, is like, generally they're the same role every single time. He wants to, like, they want to do something that affects the characters or affects the world. Like, they want to basically do the villain thing, and then they die at the end through some circumstance or something. Like, it's just, I feel like that's something that just kind of needs to go away, because if you're going to have this big universe of expanded characters, you need to have constant threats for them to face, and not like new ones all the time. Like, some of them could be returning threats.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from Loki, who's just like, I think we could go another film without seeing Loki at this point.
Well, yeah, and Loki's like, he's a villain, but you already know by this point he's not a direct, like, one-on-one threat. He's going to be the puppet master behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Almost always. Like, that's just his role now. And that's fine. Any Tom Hiddleston is always a good thing.
Yeah, but it's like, you have a character like Ultron, it's like, why wasn't he a recurring thing? Like, why did he have to get deactivated at the end of Age of Ultron?
Yeah, why was the Age of Ultron, like, less than a week?
Yeah. Like, that feels like a character who's like...
And he's even designed to keep moving. Like, as long as there's one body, he can't be dead.
Yeah, there should have been, like, an after-credit scene or something of, like, him rising up again or something like that, because that's a character that I feel like the Avengers should constantly be going back to and constantly facing off against, because he's constantly upgrading himself.
Yeah.
But anyway, aside from that, like,
all the supporting cast.
Yeah, all the supporting cast. Like, I actually, weirdly enough, I didn't like Michael Pena as much as everyone else did.
Oh man, I thought he was fantastic.
I liked him, but it's like I wasn't like head over heels over him. I actually like the other guy, the Russian dude, who's played oddly enough by the Joker's henchman in The Dark Knight.
Oh, that's where he came. Okay, he looked really familiar to me, and it drove me crazy.
Yeah, I forget the actor's name off the top of my head.
I'm on IMDb. Is it David? Oh boy.
David Dastalman.
Yeah, that's the Dastmalchian.
But I love that scene of him reacting to Scott in the Ant-Man suit shrinking for the first time, and him saying, "This is the work of gypsies."
Yes, that cracked me up.
And I love, like, their little shenanigans when they were in the truck, like him and T.I.
Yeah.
Like, T.I. going to, like, steal the cop car to distract the Bobby Cannavale's character.
Yeah. That stuff was all great. It was cool to have, like, side characters that I wanted to spend more time with. I feel like in other Marvel movies, if there's a side character, you're just kind of like, well, this is very forced comic relief.
Yeah.
No offense, Darcy.
No, please offend that character. I hate that character.
Yeah. I also feel very bad for Judy Greer, because it just seems like she gets to be in all the box office hits now, but she's relegated to the same role in all of them.
And also, like, she gets, like, a minute of screen time, and I want more of her, because she's a really good actress.
Yeah.
And that role could have gone places. Like, it could have done more with the Scott Lang character, but...
She's totally wasted.
Oh yeah, totally.
I mean, it's the same deal with like Jurassic World. Like, she's there. Why'd you do this? Just get someone cheap. Don't waste Judy Greer in a really good or a really crummy role.
Yeah. It just feels like they asked her, like, do you want to be in a Marvel movie? And she's like, yes, totally. It's like, well, here you go. This is a 1-minute cameo.
Here's your 9-film contract. You get to be the mom.
It's like the same thing with Hawkeye's wife being played by, I forget her name, Velma from Scooby-Doo movies.
Oh, was that her?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I don't recognize anybody, apparently.
Let's see. Age of Ultron.
Through the internet.
I know this is making for riveting.
Did you know that the woman who plays Hope Van Dyne, she was actually in, like, the Lord of the Ring films?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I'm killing time. Hurry up, faster. Trying to cover for you.
Okay. So, Linda Cardellini was the one who played Laura Barton. She actually got more screen time in Age of Ultron than Judy Greer got in this film.
Yeah, she had, like, actual scenes.
Yeah. Her Judy Greer was like, she showed up for the one part of him showing up for the birthday party, and then she's at the end.
And she also had a scene where she mentions that, you know, Daddy just gets confused sometimes. She had, like, 3 scenes.
Yeah, she had, like, 3 mini-second scenes.
Oh, so speaking of weird talent being wasted, did you realize the voice of the horrifying rabbit thing was Tom Kenny?
Wait, what?
I think, if I'm remembering seeing the credits right, I think he voiced the rabbit. Because I was watching the credits and I saw his name pop up and it was like next to, you know, Ugly Rabbit or something.
That's bizarre.
I'm double checking now to make sure I'm not just making things up, but...
That had a voice?
Yeah, remember it said like, you're my best friend.
Oh, the stuff... I thought you meant like one of the experimental...
Oh, no, the lambs? No.
Yeah, because at one point he does shrink a lamb, because I was like, did Tom Kenny like make the animal voices?
He made the horrified meh. I don't see him listed on IMDb, so maybe I'm making this up, but I could have sworn he was listed in the credits.
Huh. Tom Kenny was in a Marvel movie. That's kind of weird.
This is like a 2-second voice cameo. It was like one line they repeated. Watch that voice actor right now. It's just like, no, it's a lie. It was me.
But apart from
no, Tom Kenny, voice of the hideous rabbit.
So you're right.
I was right. I was not making shit up. I was scared for a minute because I couldn't find him. The voice of SpongeBob SquarePants managed to sneak into this movie.
And not only that, but he's been in Marvel cartoons, so it's kind of like a weird crossover.
Yeah. I guess that's like a very low-down cameo people haven't pointed out yet. Anyways, there you go. Hopefully someone learned something today.
Yeah. And also, like, apart from, like, the minor pits, it's like, I actually really liked Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne. I didn't expect much out of her. But I actually really like that character, and I want to see her become the Wasp.
And for me, like, MVP awards go to Michael Douglas. I love what he did just to make that guy so cranky and lovable at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean...
Marvel has knocked it out of the park, basically getting, like, distinguished actors now to come in and fill mentor roles. So I should have expected it, but he kills
definitely. Yeah, and he brings a lot of, like, just the fact that they cast Michael Douglas. I mean, Edgar Wright was the one that cast him in the first place, so clearly he was always meant for this role, but Michael Douglas being cast in this role just means that it's automatically going to be given some sort of gravitas, because you have that sort of... He's almost from another world in the way, like, he speaks and the way he interprets different scenes and the way he kind of approaches things.
I love the fact he can say the words, I need you to be the Ant-Man. I'm just doing Elsie now because I can't do Michael Douglas. I need you to be the Ant-Man. Like, he says it so earnestly. And it's saying something as dumb as the Ant-Man. I just love the fact he can pull it off and make it sound like it's the end of the world if you're not the Ant-Man.
Yeah, like, he talks about PIM particles and you're not, like, snickering or something like that.
Rolling your eyes. Like, he's like, taking it pretty seriously. He realizes, like, this is a comic book movie, but that doesn't mean you can just scoff at the source material. He takes it, seriously. I like that.
I also like how he was, like, dressed in old-timey, like, watchmaker clothes almost, where you would see him, like, tinkering with stuff, and he was, like, wearing these vests and these brown suits. Like, he looked very much like something out of a different time, which I thought was a really nice touch.
Although his time was, like, the 80s. So he was maybe overdressed for really what his time period was, but whatever.
Yeah. It's kind of like a weird, like, anti-hipster statement. But
I think I'd be a little remiss too to not focus on Paul Rudd.
Oh, Paul Rudd, like, I really loved the casting of him when it was announced. Like, I thought that was a really nice out-of-the-box idea to have him play a superhero, but he actually pulls it off to an insane degree. Like, I'm surprised he's never been a superhero.
The guy has so much charisma. Like, he could have sold any character. This could have been the dumbest character they had laying around. Like, screw it, we're going to make a Blob movie. Put Paul Rudd in a fat suit, and it still would have worked.
And also,
I think he could really just sell whatever character you wanted him to be.
And also, the fact of it is that even though it's Paul Rudd, it's not really a 100% comic relief character.
No.
Like, he pulls off the drama of it. He pulls off, like, the action, the fun of it. He pulls off, like, the earnestness of that character. Like, he's pulling so much to the table that it's like, he really gives a solid performance.
The only thing I can complain about his performance is, it seemed like whenever he was in the suit and he was doing, like, voiceovers, there maybe wasn't quite the urgency there should have been to his voice. It was just him kind of like reading the lines.
Yeah.
And obviously that's got to be such a hard thing to do because nothing you're working with is real. You're probably not even on the set. These are all the scenes where it's just, okay, they did a big CGI drawing and they have him stand in a booth and like, okay, just, read this line.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even when, like, Downey's doing it in the Iron Man suit, it's like half the time it doesn't really seem like he's doing that well of a line reading either. It's just like, he's kind of just there, and it's mostly cutting back to him in that, like, POV helmet, inside the helmet type thing. But, like, whenever they're showing Iron Man himself, it's like, okay, it's clearly not him in the suit, but he's there, I guess.
I mean, it's definitely a nitpick, but I just felt like it wasn't convincing.
I feel like that's always been kind of a problem with superhero costumes that kind of have no face or no mouth to them. Like, especially with Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man, and though Andrew Garfield did a pretty good job with that.
Yeah. I think the problem is they just need to be screaming all their lines like idiots, and then it'd come across like as urgent as I want it to sound. Corey Stoll did an okay job, just, I'm gonna disintegrate you.
You think you could stop the future?
We need more spittle. I know no one's going to see it because you're just reading in a studio somewhere, but that's what I want. I want you to sound like you're spitting on me.
But I did have like a number of nitpicks, mostly due to the editing. Like I said before, it's like a lot of stuff being cut out just kind of made the movie sail by like it was only 90 minutes. And it wasn't. It was like a 2.5 hour movie, but...
Oh, I think it was just a hair under 2 hours.
Oh,
IMDb says the runtime was 117 minutes.
Oh, okay, so it's not actually that far off, but it's still, like, even for a 90-minute movie, even if it was that, it would have been something that felt like it just went by insanely quickly. Like, by the time...
It really does. I ended up watching it a second time just so I could be prepared for the podcast, and I was amazed how fast the movie was going when I kind of realized, like, oh, shit, they're already to this point. Like, the heist is going on.
Yeah, like, by the time they go into the third act, it's like, wait, there was a second act? I thought we were still in the first act.
Yeah.
But, like, editing really kind of hurts this movie for me, because the whole, like, scene of Corey Stoll watching as PIM Technologies is essentially decimated and obliterated and then imploded on. Like, seeing his life's legacy being destroyed in front of him, and then, like, a second later, he's in the Yellow Jacket suit.
They did demonstrate earlier in the movie it only takes like 6 seconds to put on the Ant-Man suit, so I assume the Yellow Jacket is probably about the same.
Yeah, that was another thing. It's like, okay, so 10 seconds.
Those ants really should have started at like 20.
Yeah. I feel like that was like, in the original version, it was more like 10 minutes.
Right, yeah.
Which, it's like, it's funny because you see Rudd, like, struggling to put on the various, like, pieces of the suit. Like, he's putting on, like, the jacket, and he's putting on the gloves, and he's kind of rushing as things go by. But it's like, okay, those ants either don't have a concept of time, even though they're being controlled by Michael Douglas, but either that or this movie is really, really stretching the idea of disbelief, because that was no 10 seconds. That was no 10 seconds.
That one kind of cracked me up in theaters. It's a shame because, going in, watching an Edgar Wright movie, the one thing that will be immaculate for sure is the editing. He cares so much about how those movies go together. And with this one, with the rewrites, with the way Marvel kind of tinkers with things, I know Corey Stoll was doing an interview and he said they would do multiple takes of a lot of his scenes where sometimes it was made to seem like he knew what Hank Pym was up to, and sometimes he'd be clueless, sometimes he'd be angry, sometimes he'd be happy, genuine. Basically, they would record them all with different emotions, and they would make the movie in post-production. So they didn't know what they had when they were filming, and he didn't know which was the main thread they were going to pull.
Yeah.
So in editing, they just kind of have to Frankenstein this all together to make one coherent picture. And with an Edgar Wright film, I feel like he would have definitely locked that down ahead of time because he knows where all of his cuts are, how everything goes together, and it's going to be obsessively tweaked until everything flows just about perfectly.
Which is what I see as the major conflict between him and Marvel, because Marvel is getting to the point where it's like, apart from things like Guardians of the Galaxy and Winter Soldier, most of their movies are kind of mandated and dictated around. And it feels like that kind of needs to stop because it's making their movies kind of seem more formulaic as time goes on.
It's a tricky position to be in because they need the Marvel Universe to be one coherent unit.
Yeah.
The quality of it, if they can guarantee all the movies are maybe good, sure, you don't have movies that are great, movies that are shitty, but they're all good, that'll drive box office. People know they can depend on the brand, and they can go ahead and say, well, Marvel movies, I always enjoy those. I'll go see it. So they have to step in and make sure no one director has too much control or makes anything too different. You can't have, Ant-Man sticking out like a sore thumb compared to the rest of the Marvel universe. It has to flow nicely. So the importance isn't the director, it's the super producer, it's Kevin Feige. Like, he is the man in charge, it's his vision. You are there as a journeyman to basically make his vision come across.
Yeah.
And that's very weird to see in movies, because normally, we respect like the Christopher Nolans or the Edgar Wrights who come in and make the movie their vision. This is not that scenario, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. You just kind of have to... I don't think visionary directors should apply for Marvel films because they're just going to get frustrated with the experience or they're going to leave.
Well, we just had that thing with Black Panther having Ava DuVernay coming in and just
immediately dropping.
Yeah, essentially, and she explained, like, the fact is she just didn't want to make a Marvel movie because she likes to get personally invested in her own projects. Mm-hmm. And it felt like to her it would have just been making a studio movie. Whereas, like, I'm not saying that in that, like, Marvel is going to make, like, a very dumb one-shot movie out of Black Panther. It's like, Black Panther might be amazing.
Yeah.
But they do have this level of control where it's like, directors are kind of being turned off here and there. And, I mean, on some level, it kind of works to their advantage because that allows them to seek out new talent, like the Russo brothers, to come in and kind of do something and make a name for themselves.
Yeah.
They did an amazing job with Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is still my favorite Marvel movie of all of them. But,
well, I feel like the Marvel movies, like I said, they do all have a certain level of quality. And I think a certain amount of control from higher up needs to be exerted to make sure all the movies match up and fit and aren't bad. That's the biggest thing they're fighting right now. They can't have a movie come out that takes risks and is just bad. Yeah. If a movie they know is going to be good, then you can put some risks in there. And I think that's why they let Guardians of the Galaxy stand out a little bit more. One, it's removed further from all the rest of the Marvel movies. But two, they knew they had a good product that was testing well, so they could put in some more of those flourishes.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think they definitely need to scale back on studio editing as far as, like, the final products go. It's like, okay, have some input on the actual production of the movie, but when it comes to, like, post-production and stuff, don't like chop it down to the point of like this or Thor 2 or I'm trying to think of some other examples, but
I think Thor 2 is one of the worst, or Age of Ultron was another bad one where you'd hear stories of Joss Whedon basically saying they gave me an ultimatum. I could either have the farmhouse or I could have more of Thor's vision or something like that, or like he had to put Thor's vision in.
Yeah, because I feel like that's ultimately damaging to the film, like the final quality of the films, because that was, I mean, it's easily my biggest issue with Ant-Man is just how much was clearly cut out, because you see even TV spots that have these scenes that are not in the movie or have these lines that are not in the movie. Like there's this whole...
I can't trust those too much because there's a lot of times movies do that, there's something filmed maybe exclusively just for advertising purposes. You never really know.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was actually a whole sequence of them, like, at the casino that was in, like, a recent TV spot, and it's like, what? Like, it feels like...
I would be happier if they just released, like, a special edition Blu-ray and actually had real special features and more deleted scenes or alternate cuts.
Yeah.
Because we know there's got to be a director's cut out there somewhere where there's like an additional 20 minutes of stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's got to be a director's cut of Age of Ultron. We're probably not going to get that.
Right.
But, I don't know, it's, at the end of the day, it's like, I didn't love this movie as much as I loved a lot of Marvel movies, but at the same time, I did not go into it expecting it to be amazing, and it ended up being really, I mean, I liked it, for the most part.
There were a couple of sequences, too, that just really stood out, and I love how they're... Okay, it's not just a movie about a really strong guy or whatever else. It seems like the Marvel heroes aren't necessarily stale, but we don't have... Okay, let's look at Captain America. He's basically super strong.
Yeah.
And there's Thor, who's basically super strong. And he can throw himself all over the place with his hammer. And there's Hulk, who's just really super strong. And then Black Widow, who's not super strong, but she knows enough karate where she might as well be super strong.
And Iron Man, I mean, he has a suit.
He can fly and shoot lasers, so that makes him a little different, but not that different. Then you get to Ant-Man, he's got a very unique power set. So it was great to see some of those sequences that make the movie stand out. Like, the fight with the Falcon was really cool because you got to see what he could do. I really enjoyed when they're in Cross's technology center and the security guards are shooting down the model city, and you just see Ant-Man running between the bullets. Like, I love that scene. The visuals in that scene were fantastic. I thought it was amazing.
I think one of the really big strengths of Peyton Reed as a director for this movie is that one of the big things that I was worried about going in because of Wright not being involved was that it would lose a lot of the stylization of this movie. And I feel like Reed actually did a really good job of portraying the shrinking powers and the little things that they do with him when he's at that size. And some of the best sequences is actually like when they do stuff like that, because it feels like that's kind of weirdly kind of an homage to what Wright's style would have been, but at the same time they're kind of doing their own thing, and I like that about it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, it probably would have been more impressive if Edgar Wright was involved, but they actually did really good with what they had, and they actually put a fair amount of effort into it and actually made it look like visually interesting.
I do feel bad for Peyton Reed because he was stuck in a bad spot. If he'd made a good movie, people would have been like, "Oh, well, it's because Edgar Wright did so much for you." And if he made a bad movie, everyone would have been like, "Oh, well, Edgar Wright's version would have been so much better." There was like no winning involved for him.
Yeah, not at all.
And especially with Marvel basically controlling a lot of his moves, there's only so much he could have done. So I feel really bad for the guy. I gotta give him all the credit in the world for basically making a movie that's as good as it is. Yeah, I think he did the best job he possibly could have.
And not only that, but it's like he seems to really love the comics. And like whenever you talk to him, it's like he's a huge Marvel fanboy. Like he came up with an amazing take on a Fantastic Four movie that I think we actually talked about in one of the episodes. But I feel like at the end of the day, Peyton Reed delivered. I feel like in terms of this movie, it's like everyone basically delivered. It's just that to me, it's a subpar product only because of the editing, because it's just...
If there was another cut of the movie, I think you could really save a lot of portions. There's some weird little bits that could be tweaked, or maybe spots that are missing, and it really throws you off.
And as a lot of people are pointing out, it's mainly with Corey Stoll's character and Hope Van Dyne.
I wish there was a little more Stolls in there, because you can tell the guy is doing a great job and he loves the role. There's just not the material there for him to pull it off. There's an idea. You can tell, like, the whole mentor thing was a strong driving point. It's a great idea. It gives him, actual pathos, but there's just not enough expanded on it.
Yeah.
Although I did love when he melted that guy into the slime thing. That, got a gasp out of the audience both times it happened. Like, that freaked people out.
Him actually having, that snot gun thing, that was one of the most out of nowhere things I could have imagined. It was like a weird take on that scene in RoboCop where Dick Jones intimidates the other guy who I'm blanking on, where he intimidates him in the bathroom of the corporate office. And I felt like it was a weird homage to that, where it's like you have Corey Stoll's character intimidating a dude, and then he just pulls out a snot gun.
Which is even more horrifying because, the snot is still, moving. Like, oh, God, is that guy still alive? Is snot, or what happened?
And then he just flushes him down the toilet. I thought that was actually one of the most inventive ways to kill a dude.
Right? I had really high hopes for Yellow Jacket at that moment because I'm like, oh, this is going to be an interesting character. And then they get away from that. They go the generic route of, oh, by the way, Hydra, that threat you thought had been erased because it wasn't that, Threatening. That's back. That's a thing. He's working with them.
Yeah, well, I will say...
And the obvious setup where the one, obviously Nazi, no, not Nazi, but obviously Hydra guy runs off with the cross particles.
Yeah.
Sequel baiting.
Yeah. But, I will say that one thing I really did like about the Darren Cross character is that in the comic books, Yellow Jacket is actually sort of a take off on one of Hank Pym's identities, where he kind of becomes like, and this is solely based off of what I've seen of the Avengers cartoon, which is really good, and people should check it out. But the Avengers cartoon kind of has it to where Yellow Jacket is a more aggressive version of Hank Pym's identity as Ant-Man. So he kind of goes into it and he's kind of acting a little darker, a little more aggressive, a little more badass. And I felt like with him being kind of cut from the same mold as Pym, it was kind of setting up to justify why he's Yellow Jacket in this movie, which I thought worked because like he's kind of a dark mirror image of Pym himself in the comics. So Yellow Jacket as a villain makes perfect sense.
I just can't think of any Ant-Man villains, so they did with what they had.
Yeah. He is more of like, he fights other Marvel Universe villains.
Yeah, and they already took Ultron away from him, so he doesn't really have his main nemesis.
Yeah.
Nah.
Because Tony Stark had to be a dick.
Tony Stark.
But yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's a film worth checking out, I think. And it's definitely one of the better Marvel movies. Like, I compared it to Thor and to Incredible Hulk, but it's like I actually like those two films. It's just not of the upper echelon of like the Avengers, Iron Man 1, Captain America 1 or 2, like those big movies. But I still think it's perfectly serviceable. It's definitely way better than I think any of us predicted it would be, because we did that episode of the summer preview, and Ant-Man was kind of like the lowest on the bar for us, and it is definitely not that. It's definitely better than I think any of us expected. So
there you have it, folks. Box Office Pulp sorta recommends The Ant-Man.
Box Office Pulp also once shrunk down to immediate 7-inch size.
Box Office Pulp once asked me for $5 at a subway station. I didn't have it to give it to him.
Box Office Pulp thought he could change the future. Box Office Pulp now drinks.
I just want Nick Nolte jokes till the end of time now. That's all I want.
I'm gonna disintegrate you.
Anyways, are there any closing remarks you want to make, MB, before we shut this one down?
I think at the end of the day, Ant-Man is a really, really smart movie with a really big heart.
In our hearts, we all have ant hearts. No, wait, that doesn't make sense.
Well, we would die if we had ant hearts.
That's true. Maybe we've got giant ant hearts. How do ant hearts work? Mysteries of the universe.
Also, did that movie make you want to have an ant as a pet?
No, not at all.
A giant ant, I mean?
No. I didn't even like Anthony. Well, I kind of liked him, but not enough to keep as a pet.
How dare you, sir?
I don't... No, not a bug guy. Not a bug guy.
Anthony was a saint. He died for his cause. He died a loyal soldier.
That's true. Goddamn, Yellow Jacket's aim was on point for that.
I know.
He hit one bug out of a swarm. Unaided.
And he hit
naked eye.
And he hit the one bug that he knew mattered most.
Hey, Anthony, I'm surprised he didn't get a callback like Coulson at the end of the Avengers.
Yeah.
His name was Anthony. Pow!
Wouldn't it be amazing if Anthony was revealed to still be alive and he's the one that turned giant?
In the spin-off show that's coming after Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, God. Can you just imagine, like, Judy Greer in her home life with the giant ant?
That's the new Marvel series. That's why they cast a really good actress to be just the mom, the throwaway mom character. There's going to be a wacky sitcom about an injured ant coming, to terms with his disability. I'm making a drama out of this.
Friday Night Lights with ant people.
I like how we turned off, like, we started off with this whole, like, comedic approach, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's actually, like, this empowering thing of, God, wow.
Anthony's in the background. I Believe I Can Fly is getting louder and louder as he's, like, working on his rehabilitation. I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky.
My God.
Yeah, so I'm excited for Space Jam 2. Anyways, before we get into more Nick Nolte territory, if you haven't seen Ant-Man, fuck it. Go give it a shot. I think it's worthwhile. MB would give it it's not too bad out of, pretty good scale.
Yeah. A solid B.
B, hey, that's good. I mean,
bad.
Think about it. At this point, folks, your choice is this or waiting another couple of weeks to go see the Fantastic Four reboot. It's your call. I'm not going to push you one way or the other.
And
But go see Ant-Man.
Let's face it, who's waiting for that?
I like Josh Trank. I'm not excited about the Fantastic Four, and I feel bad for adding to all the hate.
I'm sorry, but I just can't get behind Naked Thing.
Michael B. Jordan, he's awesome. That guy's fantastic. Everything he's in is good.
Yeah, but Melted, Doom.
Yeah. And now we're sad again. Anyways, folks, get out of here while you still have some shred of joy left in your soul. Anyways, this has been Box Office Pulp. I've been Cody.
I've been Alex.
That's a wrap. Too late! You're Alex forever now.
No!
Ooh, your alter ego's out there.
I've revealed my own identity. It's
Just like Ant-Man. Just like Ant-Man. Did he just say his name is Scott?
Yeah, we're doomed.
And like that, he's gone.
Now the Falcon knows who I really am.